All right. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Let's Talk Open Access Books. Um, Behind the scenes of Open Access Publishing. Now we will begin shortly. So your mics are already switched off, and so is your camera for better connectivity. Um, Please do stay on the line for another minute also while we wait for everyone to settle in. If you are already on the call, do note that we will be sending you a handout at the end of the session alongside with the certificate and the recording of the session. So I'm just going to let another minute go by for everyone to settle into um, the session. We have quite a fair bit of people today. And if you can see, there's also quite a fair bit of panel today. Um, we have people, our folks from the editorial team, and also a team author that's published with us. The idea of today's session is, of course, to hear the full ecosystem of what really goes behind the scenes of open access publishing in books. So we can hear from the author, the editor, and also the editorial assistant in terms of the entire process. Um, that's been a hot minute, so I'll go formally ahead to kickstart this event today. So once again, good afternoon and very, very warm welcome to everyone to Let's Talk Open Access. My name is Melanie Yustri, and I will be helping to facilitate the session today from the beginning as well as the Q&A. Now, today with me, as I mentioned earlier, we have Clarissa Lim, Khadija Ibrahim, both of them from the Asia Pacific editorial team, and alongside an esteemed author that has published with us, a very seasoned author, Associate Professor Chris Pipin Left. And he himself here, going to share a little bit of his book later, but he's an interesting person that I've talked to in a while ago, and I think you're in it for a real treat. So the whole webinar today will cover the overview of open access ecosystem with Routledge and how you can strategize and maximize your research for greater visibility and all the advantages by just choosing open access with us. Now, if you have any questions during this session, please feel free to type them in the chat box. There's also a Q&A button you can find in your platform or in your interface. And these questions will be addressed today. So feel free to ask the questions either to our author or to of our editorial team member. Now, without further ado, I'll pass over the time to our editors, and I believe Clarissa will kickstart the session. Clarissa, please.
Hey everyone, welcome to Let's Talk Open Access Books, behind the scenes of open access publishing at Routledge. Thank you very much for attending online today. I'm Clarissa Lim, Commissioner Editor for Social Sciences at Routledge. And with us today, we have Khadija, our editorial assistant at Routledge, and also Chris, our author who have just published an amazing open access book with us. So just a short introduction of who we are as a publishing house. We are part of Taylor & Francis, and we are the premium academic publisher in both humanities and social sciences, represented by Routledge. And for our science, technical, engineering, and medical titles, we are represented by CRC Press. We are one of the top 5 global academic publishers, and we publish around 7,000 books, 2,600 journals yearly, and we have a massive backlist of around 145 specialist titles. And we are sort of one of the leading publisher for open access books. We have global sales and marketing reach, and most importantly, local editorial connections with a regional head office in Singapore since 1990s. So this allows us to really publish niche and regional titles in Asia Pacific. Let me also briefly introduce to you sort of the Asia Pacific commissioning team, and we are all based here in Asia Pacific. So I commissioned in social sciences. I'm based in Singapore. We have Kendrick, who's also based in Singapore, and he commissions in business, management, and law. We have Claire, based in Australia, and commissioning in education. Lucy, also based in Australia, commissioning in humanities and media arts. We have Andrew, based in Japan, commissioning in engineering, as well as Gerard, based in Singapore, commissioning in computer science and statistics. So with the entire team at Asia Pacific, we commission generally most of the titles in Routledge and CRC Press. So a short overview of today's agenda. Firstly, we'll discuss briefly what is open access. its aims, how many types there are, then next we go on to sort of about the communities, what are the processes that we have, how much it costs, and of course, we are very excited to also hear about Chris' perspective as an author publishing an open access book, and finally Q&A for any questions that you might have. So firstly, let's talk about open access publishing. What is it about? So open access is one of the most important things about open access is that you can maximize your research impact and allow your book to be read by anyone, anywhere. This content is freely and permanently available online to anyone, and anywhere in the world can read about it and build upon this research. So this allows your book to reach a much wider audience and also have a much greater impact. There is also no financial, legal, or technical barriers to reading the book. It's a book that is an ebook where you're allowed to share it very freely. So at Taylor & Francis, we publish a range of academic books. And you'll be thinking, what kind of books do we publish? So for different audience, we have different types of books. For our students, we have textbooks and supplementary titles that are catered and written specially for them, that they can use for their course materials. We also have professional reference and guidebooks for practitioners, and also monographs and focused short forms for our academics and researchers and scholars. And we're able to make any of our academic books open access for all readership channels at any point of time within the publishing process. And one of the questions you ask is, why would you want to write an open access book? And there are many reasons why you would think of writing an open access book. Firstly, writing an open access book really helps to maximize the visibility of your research, as everyone around the world will be able to access your research. It removes all barriers to access and is very important, especially for access to developing countries and students around the world, as not all universities libraries have access to your books. So with such access, it potentially increases citations and usage, as shown by many of our research on this, which I'll show you later as well. So open research also offers the best chance for knowledge to spread and for others to build upon your research. It's also important as it allows you to stake your claim to the research that you have done. And one important point to note is that the ebook is made available for free, but we have our printed versions such as hardback and paperback, and they will still be sold around the world. They will still be bought by academic libraries, and you can still earn royalties on the sales of these printed books. Also, as the open access books is available for free, it has a much longer shelf life and it has better accessibility compared to sort of journal publishing. The shelf life of many of these books do increase instead of decrease over time. So over time, you see that the accessibility of these books will allow more people to read these books. So some of the data that we have found from our open access publishing is that there is a much increased impact. So some of the data is that for a lot of our open access books, we have increased impact such as 7 times more downloads, 1.5 times more citations, twice the amount of diverse readership, because it allows readers around the world to access your books instead of sometimes only readers from the more developed or richer countries. It also allows you to easily share your content and connect with researchers around the world, and it leads to much higher engagements. Next, let me hand the presentation over to Khadija, who will share a little more on open access at Taylor & Francis.
Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to start with a brief overview of what open access looks like at TNF. So we offer options to make either full books or specific chapters open access, and all of our content is licensed under a Creative Commons license, and this is usually a CC BY NC ND license, which I'll get into more later. As Kirsa mentioned, our OA books are downloadable via our ebook site, but they're also discoverable via key search engines and available on third-party distributors like Amazon. And in terms of citation indexes, we currently send our OA publications data to the Directory of Open Access Books, Web of Science, Scopus, and Google Scholar, so quite widespread. And our content is also deposited to the Open Access Publishing and European Network's online library upon publication. So now to kind of just get into the two main open access types. Oh, I think it's the previous slide. Sorry, one second. The open access types. Oh, yes. Yeah, so there's two main types. Gold OA, which is when the author pays for immediate open access. And so that's when the final published version of the book is made available online as a PDF for anyone, anywhere to read. And green OA is another option that involves self-archiving an early version chapter onto a website or repository. And all of our, like all chapters from our books are actually eligible for green open access at no cost. So essentially, authors or for edited books, each contributor, they're allowed to upload one chapter from the accepted manuscript. And so the accepted manuscript refers to the pre-production version of the book. So essentially the version that's not copy edited, proofread, or typeset, just the raw word files that you would initially submit to us. Those versions of the chapter, those chapter versions can be uploaded onto a closed departmental or institutional repository immediately after publication of the book. So it's essentially just what's referred to as the version of record. And so that's so that your research is freely available for anyone within your institutional network to access immediately. And then for open repositories, you can also post the accepted manuscript chapter onto like academic social networks like ResearchGate and academia.edu, as well as personal sites and social media platforms like LinkedIn after an embargo period of 18 months. And this specifically applies to humanities and social sciences books. But just to clarify that for the green OA option, it's not the final published book or chapter version, but just the raw files. Yeah. And so in terms of the timelines, and sorry, I think it's previous slide. Oh, okay, yeah, maybe. Sorry. I guess the order was switched around. In terms of open access timelines, there are two main categories, front list and retrospective open access. So front list or born away is when the content is made available open access immediately upon publication, whereas retrospective OA involves converting already published material to open access at a discounted fee. And we're one of the most flexible publishers in terms of the open access options that we offer, because you're able to go for the front list or retrospective OA option for both like full books and individual chapters. Yeah. And so, yeah. So next, I'd just kind of like to provide an overview of the publishing process and kind of discuss how and where open access can come into this. So, I mean, the initial publishing process is fairly straightforward. Once you have a book idea, you would kind of get in touch with the relevant commissioning editor, and they'll work with you to discuss the potential project and provide any guidance and tips for writing the book proposal. This proposal will then be sent out for peer review, which can take up to a few months. And then after that, once the hopefully positive reviews are in, the project will be proposed to our publishing committee for approval, and then a contract will be signed. And so, next slide. Open access can essentially be applied to your book project at any stage. You can approach your editor with the initial proposal and also already have potential funding for the publication, or you might sign on for the book to be published the traditional way and then come across funding before submission, during production, or even several months or years after the publication. So essentially, once you make the decision to go open access, you'll need to sign an OA contract or addendum to confirm the fee amount, and then our OA team will send out an invoice and arrange payment. And so if you're going to go for the retrospective OA process where you're converting already published material, that conversion process will take around 4 to 6 weeks after payment has been made. But it's important to note that the essential elements of the OA publishing process and the traditional process is largely the same. So the same quality checks and approval processes are put in place. And the OA books are also copy edited, typeset, designed, and marketed the same way as our traditional titles, which means that OA books can be included in tenure or promotional review packages in the same way as standard publications. So it shouldn't really be considered a quick and easy route to publication because that isn't the case. Yeah. And so next slide is on copyright, which I guess is a question that we get asked a lot. And as I mentioned earlier, our OA books are published under Creative Commons licenses. And so CC licenses give everyone from individual creators to large institutions a standardized way to grant the public permission to use their creative work. And from the reuser's perspective, the presence of a Creative Commons license is really helpful because it helps answer the question, like, what can I do with this work? And TNF OA books normally publish under Creative Commons attribution, non-commercial, no derivative license. And so essentially what this means is that like the BY ensures that credit must be given to the creator. NC specifies that it's for non-commercial use only, and ND states that no derivatives or adaptations of the work are permitted. And journals are often licensed under CC-BY, which is a more open license. However, within book publishing, we typically use a more quote-unquote restrictive license for the following reasons. Book content is more likely to contain third-party materials, so that this might not allow for the CC-BY license, which is only just about providing credit to the creator. And then unlike journals, book authors also receive royalties as we've discussed, which can then be impacted by the free OA version, especially if the most open CC-BY license is used. And also really importantly, using the CC-BY and CND license, we retain the ability to negotiate and sell translation rights. And so essentially, the license offers the best combination of dissemination and protection because people can freely download and share the book as long as they credit you, but then they can't alter it or use it commercially. And while this is our default license, we do offer alternative types based on funder or author needs. So if you'd like to go for another option, then like please do so, and like you can discuss this with your commissioning editor down the line because we are flexible on this. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah, so now to kind of get into the OA fees. So, I mean, as we've discussed, like OA publication is dependent on a payment of a one-time book processing charge fee, which is typically paid by your research funder or institution. And the BPC subsidizes the many costs that are associated with publishing the book. So it covers things like the editorial services, peer review, and then all of the production kind of costs, as well as ebook conversion and dissemination, as well, and also marketing and sales support. And which is why, yeah, because the open access publication process is so similar to our traditional process, a lot of these costs are shared. And the fee also covers the long-term preservation of our open access books because we upload the content to a wide range of third-party archives, including Portico, online libraries like Clocks, and then as I mentioned, the open access publishing in European networks online library to enhance discoverability. And yeah, so that's kind of what the fee covers. But to get into the pricing specifically, our full books start from £10,000 or 12,500 USD. Short form books, which are limited to 50,000 words, they start at £5,000 or 6,700 USD. And each chapter costs £1,250 to make open access. And yeah, please note that these prices aren't inclusive of taxes. But we do understand that these charges may not be feasible in certain regions, and we want to like make the option to publish open access available to as many researchers as possible, which is why we do offer up to 75% discounts for funders that are based in countries classified as low income and lower middle income by the World Bank. So some of these countries include Bangladesh, Cambodia, India, Philippines, Vietnam, Pakistan, and quite a few others. So if you'd like to know, yeah, so please let us know if you'd like to know more about this. And next slide. So yeah, kind of just trying to also cover the fees for retrospective open access. Retrospective OA is generally a really good option to consider to expand your book's audience and outreach, and also just renew interest in your title. And essentially, we offer discounted rates in recognition of the fact that the book has already been available for a sale for a number of months or years. And so this is why it's a great alternative to consider if you have partial funding, but not enough to cover for the full BPC. And so we offer our discounts on a tiered scale, depending on the amount of time that has passed since your book's initial publication. There's a 30% discount for titles made open access after 12 months after publication, a 50% discount for books made open access 24 months after publication, and then a 70% discount if the book is being made open access 36 months after initial publication. And so you can pay these fees in advance, which is what's considered an embargoed OA in case your funding needs to be used within a specific time period, or you can pay closer to the date that the content would be made open access. And crucially, the discounts for low income and lower middle income countries still apply on top of the retrospective OA discounts. So this would obviously very much lower costs. So I think that's me covered. So I'll hand things back to Clarissa to discuss more on funding sources.
Yeah, thank you very much, Khadija. So next, I'll go through on funding sources. So one of the most important things that you'll be thinking of is, where would I be able to get the funds? So there are a few things to check when you're looking at funding sources. One is have a discussion with your university and the libraries. Have your university signed an existing OA agreement with a publisher? Most universities will have a web page detailing their open access policies and where the fundings are available. If you have funding for your project or from your university, the next question would be, what are the terms and conditions that the funding has with regards to open access? What does the funding entails? And lastly, I think one of the most important things is always to speak to the library contact in your university and have a discussion with them on what are the different open access options that are available and how are they funded. So it's always important to have an open mind to have as much discussion as possible about open access within your universities to find out more about them. And generally, after an open access book is published, the next question you have is, how should I maximize my open access impact? Because the point of publishing in open access is to ensure that it has the greatest impact, greatest research impact. So there are a few things that can be done once you have published your open access book. One of the few things is when you is to propose your book on academic networking sites, is to blast it on social medias like Facebook, LinkedIn, and different other social medias, Twitter as well. If you have a departmental website, it's good to sort of post your book online to let as many people know about your book as well, especially if you have your own profile site. It's always good to put these other titles that are published and these other titles that are made open access. It's always good to put the link so that readers can click on the link and have access to open access content immediately. If you're a teacher or lecturer as well, or professor, it's always good to include your book onto students' reading list. Have a discussion with the other academics that you know who are also researching into these areas. And this is a book that can be on all of their students' reading list as well, so that as many people as possible can have access to the research. Email everyone you know to propose and tell them, share the great news, their title has been published and the book is made open access so everyone can actually have access to it. If you have a blog, personal web page, it's always good to share it on your blog, on your personal blog, or create a blog and just share it with everyone that you know. If you have access to podcasts as well, have a short video or interview with people that you know to inform them about your book as well. And I think most importantly, when you have your own sort of email signature, put it into your email signature and tell everyone that you know that your book has been published and is made open access. So anyone who has received an email from you would be able to access your open access book. So next, let me share with you, let me introduce you to Chris, who will share with you on the author's perspective on open access. Chris, next to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Pepin-Neff. I'm an associate professor of public policy at the University of Sydney. I've been at Sydney 12 years. And I want to first begin by thanking Clarissa and Khadijah. I was so lucky. This was such a wonderful experience working with them both. I published 3 books in the last 6 years, 2 with Routledge, 1 with somebody else. And this is the winner for me. This was such a wonderful experience. And open access, I think, Khadijah and Clarissa both said it. It's not really any different. I think the funding is probably the biggest one to sort out, but from a production point of view, it doesn't really affect probably your book proposal or any other things. At least it didn't mine. And I got funding. I got accepted into the OA program at my university halfway through. So there were some changes, but anyway, I'll get into it. So I did the book, and then that's me. Oh, I was going to say, I've got my other 2 books here. This is my other Routledge book and the other one. And then I was like, oh, I don't have it in my office. It's on my phone. Easy. This is the whole point about open access. It's right. Sorry, where am I? It's right there. So there's your phone. There's your thing. So anyway, so we can go to the next slide if that's all right. And so I thought I would just answer some questions. So the motivation for open access, my book was about inequality. And I think I understand the books cost money, and I understand that there's somebody's paying for it somewhere. But as somebody who was writing a book about inequality, it meant a lot to me that the book was accessible and that it didn't have a price point that was going to mean that the usual, I think we joke and we hope that 25 people are reading the book, but this has got over 1,000 downloads this year versus the 7 people that would have maybe otherwise read it. And I'm joking, but thousands, I could never have dreamed of that number. And when you look at like the demographic breakdown of where are those 1,000 people, they're in the countries that want to talk about inequality, and they're from communities that need free books. And so it also selfishly gave me a little bit of more of a moral honesty about being able to write a book knowing that it wasn't going to be inaccessible, right? That they weren't going to be able to afford to write it. So it gave me a little bit more license to really sell some of the things that I was talking about in terms of the principles of equality that I put in there. So the process and having it be open access made it a better book, right, for the reader and for the author. So there's that. That was my motivation. Securing funding. So this is always the tricky one. But I think that Khadijah's point as well was really well taken, that you can do it either at the point of, right, I think it was called birth, right? You can do it when you're born, or you can do it later. And I think that's really important. So for instance, I had a really good, I've been at Sydney University for a long time, right? I did my master's and my PhD here as well. So it's over 15 years. So I had a really good relationship with the librarian, and they have an existing scheme. So libraries have these existing schemes that that you can opt into, but it does help. So for instance, at our library, it's done by discipline. So we have a political science librarian who handles us and sociology and anthropology and some of the other ones. And so I reach out to them and say, I've got a book coming out. If it's possible to have it included in any of the schemes, please let me know. And I was lucky that it did. It's kind of like selling the book to your university, right? Not just to the people who are going to buy it and your students or your reading list, but to your university. And universities are looking for books to include in open access programs. Like they want to. It helps increase impact. It increases community engagement. Like it's good for the university. So that's how I did it. But I've also seen it. I was deputy head of school research here at the university, and I've seen it in grant applications. as a core element of the way that they secured funding. So they put in a grant application either internally or externally, and they would say, a core part of the work that I'm doing, the journal article, the book, whatever it is that it's going to be open access and be accessible. And I think the thing just to be mindful of is that I think I hope I'm not stepping in it, but I'll just say open access has historically not always had the greatest reputation. I'll use an example. I have some colleagues here who wrote an open access textbook, but the design was open access. It wasn't a book that went to publication that was made open access. And I think that's a distinction that's important to note. But also, I think also Khadija and Clarissa, when they were talking about like the standards, like the high standards of the books aren't compromised. I think some of the other ones in the past, maybe 10 years ago, were not seen as equal to paper books. That is not the case anymore. I got my promotion. I'm associate professor. I got my promotion off this book from senior lecturer to associate professor. It was the one on the phone that got me across the line on that. So I've been promoted through it as well. How have I promoted the book? Also on the phone. I did a TikTok, a bunch of TikTok videos because I'm a delight to talk with on the internet. And so I did I did a book launch on TikTok videos. I also held an in-person book launch at the university with some amazing Aboriginal artists who came and talked about the book. I had 200 people. It was a huge success. I had printed copies. It was just like a normal book launch. It just was really great to be able to say to people that when you RSVP'd to the book launch, you already got a free copy of the book. So it was already on the QR code and was already sent to them. The other point in terms of promoting the book and how it's kind of elevated my career is the ability to then email colleagues. And because Routledge and Taylor and Francis is such a good outfit, it's just such a good company. When you email people with links and say, I've got an open access book from Routledge, it's given a lot of weight. It's a top publisher. So you can email it to colleagues and either recommend it for them or recommend it for them and their classes. Clarissa mentioned this, right? You can put in the reading lists. I put together an Excel list of everyone who teaches all of the stuff that I teach all over the world. And I had 250 academics, and I emailed them all the link of the book. So, and I know it's being used. I got called from, just as I've been told Clarissa or Khadija this, but there's a new unit at the University of Canberra, and they called me and said, we're going to teach this new certificate. We're using your book to teach the degree. Do you want to talk about it? And come. So like, it just happens. And the other advantage is that, as a lot of universities are doing lots of online formatting, an open access book it just makes a lot more sense for an online formatted degree, which is what this one was. How else did I promote it? I did the regular book launch. I did that. I did the socials. I'm American. I'm not shy. The one thing I would say, the tips for authors, you do have to be mindful that because the book is going to be more accessible and is going to be read by more people, right? I got the 1,000 downloads already. When you're writing it, you're writing for a larger audience. You're not writing for your department or for your university or just for your discipline. People are going to read it. So you want to write and be mindful. It doesn't necessarily change the way that you would write, but you're at least asking the question, am I writing in a way that is approachable for people? Where if it's not just accessible from a price point, is it also intellectually accessible for them, or am I in the weeds and making this hard on myself? I had a tip here: do a launch. Authors love launches. We're made. This is our moment. We work really hard. It took me 3 years to write the book. Do a launch. It's not. I brought mine to bookstores. I've got my book in bookstores down the street. I just did a commission thing where, they sell it for $25 and then they give me $25. That's fine. It's not a big deal. I said this, it's easier to get in the syllabus. And the last point I'll just say is that impact, so not only did it help me get this promotion, it's going to help me get the next promotion too, because my ability to demonstrate impact, like the university that's now using the book to teach the class, right? That's impact. It all counts. And so it's just been a really positive experience. I don't have anything bad to say. And I'm probably eternally grateful to Clarissa and Khadijah. So that's me.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much for the very kind words. As Chris has mentioned, open access book does give a lot of impacts to authors and the community that they research in, and it also really serves a lot of the scholarships and academia who really works on this book. Yeah. So next, let me share with you some resources on open access books publishing. So there are some resources online that you can read about to know more about open access and to know more about sort of the open access myths that we have. And lastly, thank you very much for listening to us. Please let us know if you have any questions for the webinar.
Thank you so much, Clarissa, Khadija, and Chris, for the sharing today. I think it was very, very fruitful. We do have some questions already streaming in while you guys are doing the sharing.
Awesome.
And I think a lot of it goes back to the fees that Khadija was sharing on in terms of whether certain regions are being covered for. And we are also, I want to make a point, we are also experiencing some issues on our Routledge site specifically to the ENZ region. So if you're purchasing any of the titles, you might encounter some problem. Do send me a chat as well so that I can direct you to a sales support team to help facilitate the purchase. Now, aside from that announcement, I also want to share with everyone who's online right now that this session is recorded, so you can always view back in terms of what Khadija and Clarissa shared in terms of open access with us, and also the tips and tricks that Chris shared just minutes ago. Now, let's kickstart with terms of questions. Now, one of the questions we have on the line is, how do authors make revenue on open access publication? Um, Good one. Clarissa, do you want to kickstart this one? How do authors make revenue on open access? What are the terms in the contract?
So I think one of the important points to note is that for our open access books, our open access, the online book is made available free and available for everyone. So what you're looking for as an author when you have an open access book is impact. It's not monetary revenue, but it's more of impact. How is the content shared? How is your research being shared around the world? One point to take note is that only the online book is being made open access, where everyone can download for free. But the printed versions, such as the hardback and the paperback, are still available for sale. So academic libraries will still be able to buy your hardback versions, and a lot of your scholars and friends, if they want a copy of your book, they can still get the paperback version. So one of the important things to note is that as impact increases, as the open access book is being shared widely to the world, you will realize that a lot of academic libraries, a lot of universities, professors, they will be reading your book. And when they read the book, they'll be keen for your book, for the their own academic libraries to get a copy of your book. So the research has actually shown that when a book is being made open access, the hardback copy of the book, which is generally bought by academic libraries, do increase. And there are a lot of people who do like a physical book. So our research has shown that when a book is being made open access, the sales of our hardback copy, which is generally bought by academic libraries, as well as the sales of the paperback, which is generally bought by your scholars and your students, generally will increase. Yeah, because generally there's a lot more accessibility to that as well.
And sorry, Clarissa, I might also add, I'm sure there's some PhD students and researchers who aren't working at universities. This is how you get a job. I mean, that's part of the market, right? Is that if your research is published in a top quality publisher, you've got a broad network of broad social network of professionals who are reading your work, if you're cited more often. And I mean, like I said, I got my promotion off the book, right? But I think for most people, it's getting the job is where the money is. That getting the publication, having the research network, and having the in addition to the impact. I mean, I'm just being very selfish here and saying, if more people are reading your work, you're more likely to get a job. I think that's true.
That's definitely
Right.
very true. Thank you very much, Trees.
Yes. So now we talk about funding, and I think Chris just mentioned briefly as well in terms of the OA program to which he was enrolled in. Now, Chris, in a situation where an author is currently an independent author, not really affiliated to any sort of university, are the fees fully charged based on what you shared? Is there any other sort of financial discounts or waivers that these independent authors could look forward to?
So for all of this, it would be great for each of the individual authors to get in touch with an editor so that the editor can discuss with each of the independent researcher what is the circumstances, and we'll then discuss with the open access team to see what kind of discounts we can give for different books that we're looking into. So generally, other than sort of the university fundings that you're looking for, another option is definitely the research funding that you may have for conducting the research. Other than sort of university funding and research funding, in certain countries itself, in like Asian countries like Japan, Korea, there are also fundings provided by the government for publishing in English. So if you have a publication that's in a native language and you like to convert it to, you like to publish the English version of it, you can have a discussion with us, and there's generally some kind of funding involved for translations as well, and some part of the funding can actually be used for open access as well. Also, a lot of the times it's not just about doing open access for an entire book. So if the funding is limited, we can definitely look into open access for just a single chapter where you have impact as well as retrospective open access, where you based on the research funding that you have, we can look into fundings after the book has been published. So there are many options that we can look into, and so please do feel free to discuss with any of the editors who will be working with you on your book, and we can also discuss with sort of the open access team to discuss which kind of funding will be most suitable based on the amount of funding that you have received. What kind of open access options are available? Yeah.
Right. So the other question that a trend that I'm also seeing in the chat already the questions section, it's about how does open and what are the benefits of open access to an early career researcher. So in a situation where an early researcher career would like to start open access, what are some of the immediate benefits that they can actually achieve um, just by taking this option?
Can I make a
So
quick?
go
Can I
ahead,
do a quick
please.
one
Go
there?
ahead.
You
Yes.
get invited to more things. So when your link can be circulated and people can read it, like time is our most precious commodity, right? So the ability to click, go, read, and find people to invite to workshops and seminars and conferences, like it's like a force magnifier. Like it's not a small thing that there's more people who read more of your stuff. It takes them less time to do it. It's free. That the it has like I say, this quantum effect. For an early career researcher, you do get. I mean, I can say this. I get invited to more things, more panels, more workshops, more seminars, more conferences than I ever did with a standard hardback copy. Sorry, Clarissa.
No problem. Thank you so much, Tris. Yeah, so as Tris has mentioned, generally for an early career researcher, I mean, what you would like to do is to make sure that you have the greatest impact in the shortest period of time so that you get the fastest promotion ever in your academic career. You want to speed up your promotion career. You don't wait like so many years just to get onto the next stage of your career progression. So having open access will allows you to really promote your research and share with others. This is the research that I've done, and especially when you are aware of the citation citations, the number of downloads and all, you are aware of the impact that you're making with the research that you've done.
And can I make one more thing? When you send it to these networks who now are going to talk to you because your book is free, and you say to them, I want you to put it in your reading list for the units you're teaching next semester, it's free for the students. So it's not like you're pitching a book that you're telling them because you're going to get 1% or whatever it is of the book, right? You don't have a thing in the game. You're just helping them fill their course syllabus. So, which also creates both a better thing for them and their students, but it then creates a network of people who trust you. You do good work. Your work is free. Their students are reading it. It really, especially in the ECR universe, right? Early career researchers, where it's so competitive. It's really, higher education is incredibly competitive right now, and the ability to have those networks and have the networks using your work, not just citing it in a book, which is great, but using it in class, even if it's not a textbook, right? I haven't written a textbook, but my books are used all the time. So it really does make a difference.
Right, that's very insightful in terms of the immediate visibility of impact, just by having it open access. Back to the editorial team, I think briefly earlier we mentioned in terms of the type formatting, the language, the setting of the book. Now, in that situation, and when should an author who already have traditional publication consider retro OE, and when they should consider front list? I think earlier you mentioned about the flexibility of how we have this different diverse options of either doing retro, which is 36 months later, or to do front list or bond OA. So what should an author consider before deciding this track? Or is it something that they could actually decide much, much later when the book proposal is approved?
This one of the most important thing for an author would be, once you're aware of open access, and the benefits of it would be, when are you able to get the funding and how much funding is made available to you? So based on the amount of funding that's made available to you, if you have the funding available for a whole book OA, at the point of time where you're thinking of the book idea, you have the book idea in your mind and you know that you are able to get the funding, then that's the point that when you approach a commission editor to write about the book idea, to propose the book, then you can share with us that, okay, I have this funding that's available. And at the point of time, we will work with you on the book and we'll propose it as an old book title. So that we are able, when the manuscript comes into production and we put the manuscript into production, we are able to tell production that this is an open access book. And we'll promote this as an open access book throughout its production span. So when we post it, when we have the book's website, it will be noted that this is an open access book. Also, based on the funding that you have received, if the funding is not the full funding for an open access, a whole open access book, and it's only for just a single chapter, then you can sort of share with us and we'll be aware that, okay, maybe you don't have the amount of funding available for the whole book. Perhaps we can just make sort of the introduction open access, or maybe the most exciting chapter that you have open access. So there are many different options available, and it really depends on sort of the funding that you have received. If the funding is much lesser, then it will be something that maybe we can make the book retrospective OA, so embellow OA. So perhaps we have the amount of funding for sort of 1 year after publication, and that will be something that we can look into as well. And so the payment for that funding can be made at any point of time before the book is being made open access. So if you may not have the funding for this year, but you're like, okay, I don't have the funding for open access this year, I have the funding available next year. And then that's something that we can sort of put into as an open access book with the funding to come in next year. And then we will then make the book open access next year. Chris?
And I was just going to say, Clarissa, and that's a great writing strategy as well, right? Because there's no guarantee that whether the book costs money or is free, that they're going to read it from the first page to the last page. So having your chapter 1, which is what I did on mine, right? If you could read the whole book in chapter 1, it's the best chapter in the book, but it also lets you off the hook if that's all you're going to read. Like, I know my students, I understand my colleagues. time again is your most precious commodity. So there's a publishing strategy in Clarissa's point that's also a good writing strategy, which is that you've got your keystone chapter. It's the motivating principle of the book. And maybe for open access, it makes a lot of sense to have that be the rocket ship of the thing. It's great if people get the whole book, but they may not read the whole book, even if it is open access.
That's a very good point. So we have a few questions on Indonesian landscape. As you know, Indonesia itself has very limited funding. We mentioned earlier in terms of the lower income, middle income, discount waivers, and then you also talk about government grant, the institution programs. So one of the questions that was in here is in terms of collaboration. Now, if there was a collaboration for open access book, but from two different institutions, how can they move forward with this? Is this how do they submit one single proposal through, or I think this is more a technical question than anything else. So, Clarissa, if we are coordinating with different institutions for different funding, means is it funding coming from different institutions, but for one single title? How do they process it? Is that more chaotic, or is that pretty much not a problem on our end because it's pretty much just having things written in the contract? How is it like, Clarissa?
Yep. I can take this question. So I mean,
Go
there's
ahead.
no. Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the process looks exactly the same. So, if you just have funding from two separate institutions, then you can just let us know once, like, we set up the invoicing process. And basically, our OE team will be sending two separate invoices to distribute the funding accordingly. But then the title, I mean, the author and all that, it'll just all be listed under one book. And the contract, everything will still go out the same as if there was like one single funder. It's just that the payment will be split between two different institutions, which is totally okay.
Right. There we have it. In terms of the flexibility that we have, the options we have is quite, there's always room for negotiation to achieve the optimal. I think at the end of the day, everyone is here for the same goal, which is to get the research out there and readily available for everyone to use and add on to that. So, Chris, this question is for you. We heard about what motivates you to write this book, how it became open access. We also hear from you in terms of benefits. So could you share with us a little bit of advice for anyone who wants to take on this route? And this is the first time that they're doing it. What really matters in the production of open access book?
Is that for me?
Yes.
Well, and I
Right
should
from
just
the
preface
author.
by saying that I'm not really this nice a person, that I've been giving all these compliments to Clarissa and Khadijah and Rutledge and everyone, and I'm not really comfortable being this pleasant to everyone, but they deserve it, and so I give it to them. I mean, in the production, again, it's like I don't think it's different than any other book, but because it's going to be read more widely. So, for instance, you got to balance the chapter length, right? For instance, so you don't go probably over 8,000 words per chapter, because if you've got 14, it's going to be weird. More people are more likely going to read it. Another production issue to be mindful of is that because more people are reading it, there might be more reviews of it. Right, my book's being reviewed. I haven't told Clarissa or Khadijah this, but Tolerable Inequality is currently being reviewed. I had a colleague who came who read it because I sent the link, and when he came to Sydney, he said, "Oh, by the way, I got sent the review, like to do for the peer review for the journal." So, like, because it's also going to be and that's a production thing, right? It's got to be good quality. And it's, I think, because the previous decade where open access sometimes had a bad reputation, the fact is that open access has to be the best books because more people read them. They're more likely to be reviewed. They're being peer reviewed by your peers in the review process. So they just have to be really solid. And that's true for the independent writers. It's true for the university writers. It's just going to be good books need to be good books. So it was something that I went back. I had a friend who read it, and he said, "You need more citations." He went to chapter 1, the one that was my keystone chapter. He said, "More citations in chapter 1. You're going to live or die by it." So So it absolutely had an impact. The other thing with production, I'll just say it was kind of seamless and good. There wasn't a difference in the in moving it along, but in the turnaround time was the same for edits and revisions and things. It just wasn't any different than any other book that I've done, except that I did it with these nice people. And that was the great benefit.
Fantastic. And you
Yeah.
yourself have published 3 books. Oh, sorry, Clarissa, go ahead.
Let me also add that for an open access book, when we are reviewing the open access book, when we're reviewing any book proposal at sort of the book proposal stage, or when we send it for peer review, the point of whether it will be an open access book has got no implications. So regardless of whether the book will be made open access or not made open access, when we receive a book proposal, it will still be reviewed by the editor based on whether the book is suitable for the Routledge program. And when we send it out for peer review, it will still go through a very rigorous peer review process to ensure that the book is suitable for the market that we're going for and is suitable for the Routledge list that we're going for. The entire production process, there is also no change in terms of the entire production process of whether it's an open access book or not. It's just that when we're making the promotions of it, when it's promoted on the website, we make it clear that it's an open access book. Yeah. So generally, there should not be any differences in terms of the peer review of the book, the acceptance of your book proposal, and the production process. It's just that at the point of time when it's published, it's a lot easier for you to promote your book because it's made open access.
Right. Thank you so much, Clarissa, for that. And I also echo the efforts that Chris mentioned in promoting his book, and now that it's widely available through TikTok and book launches. Would it be accurate for me to say that whether it's traditional publishing or open access publishing, these efforts are still very much similar? The only difference is that now it's just a link away rather than an entire handout. Would that be accurate to sum up in terms of why we should actually promote open access? It's faster, would you just say, Chris, in terms of
Yeah, I
getting the book
totally
out there?
agree. I mean, we're
And
time poor. We don't have time. In academia or for the readers or for the students, getting people to read books is hard. Making it easy for them and quick for them is good, and that's what this does.
Right. Circling back to you, Chris, for one last question in terms of the process. When you're building this book and selecting the chapter, or rather, just now you mentioned keystone chapters, um, was there a reasoning behind why the first chapter was it, or was there any other parts that you wish would have become OA, but you reserved it for traditional publishing? Maybe you can
That's
share
a
a little
great
bit about.
question. So in my other book, which I also did with Routledge, it's chapter 7 as a keystone chapter. So I did it only in so for the hardcover in the old book it was chapter 7, but like I said, which is kind of what I used and circulated that one chapter when it wasn't, the whole book wasn't open access. But for this, I did it just for simplicity because chapter 1 made sense to walk people into it. But I did design the chapter around the fact that it was going to be the most important, like you would for any work that you're doing. But yeah, I thought it had the best likelihood just because it was chapter 1.
Right, and that is a strategy in itself, actually, because time is of the essence, and not everyone has the luxury of time to skim through chapters. And I would say that is one of a successful strategy that any authors on the call could also take in for your publication. We do have time for one last question, but I'm not too sure if it's a loaded question. But we do have one. I'll just go ahead and shoot. I am a seasoned author and I would like to consider Retro OE. However, my book is long ago published. How is it still relevant, and could I still consider Retro OA?
Let me take on
Yeah.
this
Yes.
question. Yeah, I suppose for online titles, for in general, let me just share that most of the lifespan of a book is generally around sort of 5 years. So a journal is a little shorter, around sort of 2 to 3 years. and the content of a journal is generally quite dated after 2 or 3 years because the cycle is a lot faster. For books, we're generally looking at 4 to 5 years for a general monograph, and then unless it's textbook or a proper handbook, then we're looking at sort of 8 to 10 years. Generally, after 4 to 5 years, you will realize that the readership of a book does goes down, especially after the first 2 years. Most of the academic libraries will only get a book in the first year for the first copyright year. After the first copyright year, most academic libraries are not very keen on getting the book. They will get the latest book. So after probably 5 years, it will be a good time. The discount rate after the third year is actually like at 70%. So the amount of funding that you require is very, very little. So that is also the point where you realize that you have to, after 3 years, I would say that's the point where you have the greatest amount of discount ever possible for an open access book is at 70% discount. And that's the point where you can rejuvenate interest in your books. That's the point of time where the general readership of your book has really gone down. And that's the point of time where when you have an open access book, you can share it more freely and you'll realize that because you're able to share the book more freely, it has a much longer shelf life of the book.
Can I just say there
Right.
as well, like Clarissa's point, I think is really well taken. And maybe it's not so much about the original first edition, but about getting the second edition. So you recirculate you do the open access to get it sort of flood the market with the topic and the issues and get your name out there a little bit more. But the purpose isn't necessarily to get people to read the first book. It's to lay the groundwork for the second edition. Either could be the second edition of the same book or next step in that topic.
Fantastic. There you go. You have it. You
Awesome.
heard
Thank
it
you,
from the
Elise.
strong panel. Yes, we're quite overrun by a minute, but I think that was a very important question to end off this session. Um, and yes, we have come to the end of today's sharing. Thank you again, Associate Prof. Chris, Khadija, and Clarissa, for today's session. There are still some questions in the segment. I'll go ahead and share it across with Clarissa and Joshua submitted a question. Thank you very much. We will try to get back to you via email. And then again, if you have any questions, these are the email address you can reach out to. And then a recording and a feedback form will be sent to you after this session. Now, with that, I wish everyone a very fantastic good luck and all the best with your publishing journey. And we look forward to be connected again. Thank you so much, Chris, Khadija, and Clarissa. Take care and
Thank
stay
you,
safe.
everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.